Now, on to the good stuff. Again, thank you so much, Sean, for joining us. Over a quarter century, Commander Sean Spicer has built a distinguished career navigating turbulent political seas. In 1999, he joined the United States Navy Reserve. From 2000 to 2001, he was communication director for the House Government Reform Committee. Promoted to Budget Committee spokesman, he soon performed similar duties for both the House Republican Conference and the RNC. In 2015, Sean was named GOP chief strategist. The following year, President Trump appointed Sean Spicer White House press secretary, as well as communications director. Our guest today has served his country, advised presidents, hosted TV shows, written best-selling books, and danced with the stars. Ladies, please help me welcome Sean Spicer.
Well, thank you, guys. It's definitely different doing this than being in person. I enjoyed being able to travel out there and see everything that's going on, and you definitely get a different feel in person than on a Zoom, but we have to take what we can get these days, and it's a little bit harder to travel. So I want to talk for a few minutes, give you guys what I think the lay of the land is, and then I think it's more fun to do the Q&A part of it because I want to know what's on your mind. So let me just start. There's another debate this week out in California at the Reagan Library. As of right now, 4 o'clock Eastern time, 7 candidates have qualified for that stage. Asa Hutchinson is the only one who hasn't qualified. I don't think he'll make it by whatever 9 o'clock tonight, because I don't think that he's going to either get an influx of massive amount of donors or some new polling. But so we'll have seven folks on the stage. I honestly, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in terms of moving the needle, which is really what the debate's all about. I think it's more been a show for a lot of folks in the media and a lot of pundits. When you look at what really matters right now, if you don't win Iowa or New Hampshire, I don't see how you go on. So Team DeSantis and Team Pence have put all their chips in Iowa. And I think I would agree with them in the sense that if they do well there, and well is either winning or a really close second, I think they fight another day and they go on. Similarly, Chris Christie has gone all in New Hampshire. But if you can't win one of these early states, and I would argue that if Donald Trump conversely runs the first 4 early states, the race is over going into Super Tuesday. It's just, this is the thing that the national media always doesn't fully appreciate. It is a delegate race, and that's it, pure and simple. Chris Christie on a Sunday show brought up Joe Biden's race last time, and he was right. I mean, he won South Carolina largely through the help of Jim Clyburn last time, and that catapulted him back into the race. He went into Super Tuesday, and that was, he hadn't even competed in some of the states. They ended up winning on Super Tuesday. So I really believe on the Republican side right now, one, if Donald Trump can run all 4 first states, he goes into Super Tuesday, and I think, frankly, the race is all but over. Conversely, if one of the other candidates can pick off one of the early states, then I think we have a very different race on our hands. We go into Super Tuesday, and we'll see how that affects everything. But you look at state poll after state poll, and Donald Trump's command of the base is anywhere between the high 40s to the low 60s. That's just unprecedented, unheard of. And the thing that's interesting to me is when people look at both sides, I've always said that understanding the rules is critical to understanding how the game is played. You look at a state like California, they changed their delegate rules about a month and a half ago so that if you get 50% plus 1 in the state, you get all of the delegates. Right now, that seems to benefit Trump. Trump's been in a lot of these places where he's been working with the state parties to look at the rules and help, do what he can to benefit him. That's very smart of him and his team, although it is ironic that the guy talks about rigged systems all the time and you've got him out there working with them in the state parties. I think that's a smart move. And the beauty of him being twice the nominee before is that he understands the importance of this, and he has a ground game and an understanding of the rules that I just don't think anybody else has by the nature of how they're running. So Trump right now, I think, is in the driver's seat. And unless he does something to lose it in the early states, it's his to do that. you look at where these other folks are positioned, right? With the exception of DeSantis, for the most part, everyone else is in single digits. And the reason that that's important is that I go back to the rules. In most states, there's a minimum threshold, and it's usually 10%. It can be as high as 20. That if you don't get that, you don't even qualify for delegates. So, for example, if you get 9% in a state and they have a 10% threshold, you get 0 delegates. I tell people all the time, Trump won South Carolina in 2016 with 23% of the vote and pretty much got all the delegates because of where everyone else placed in that primary. So understanding this, the state's rules are going to be critical to understanding how the game's played. And the national media wants to completely focus on, both in terms of the primary and the general election, a national poll. And a national poll doesn't matter. We're not running a national primary. We're not running a national general election. It's good to look at those in terms of looking at momentum and trends, but they are certainly not a way to do this. And so right now, I will be interested to see who ends up absolutely making it to Iowa. As I said, I think Pence and DeSantis are all in there. But then you think about a state like South Carolina, where you've got Nikki Haley and Tim Scott in there. My prediction is both don't make it to South Carolina. And if neither does fairly well, they're both done. You can't effectively have represented South Carolina for as long as both of them do and come in, a distant second. And I would say that Tim Scott probably has more to lose as a sitting U.S. senator than a former governor and Nikki Haley does. So the thing is, all of these guys, to some extent or another, in terms of the front runners, have cast their lot into an early stage. As I said, Scott and Haley in South Carolina, Christie in New Hampshire, and Pence and DeSantis in Iowa. And so when you've done that, you can't get your clock cleaned and then say, I can tell grassroots supporters and donors to keep funding me. It's just not going to happen. So I truly believe that when we go into Super Tuesday in March, we are going to have a very, very small field, if any. The other thing that's interesting to point out, in 2016, between Iowa and Super Tuesday were 29 days. There are 50 now. Why does that matter? Well, races cost money. And to stay alive for 50 days costs money. It costs your staff money. It costs, you got to be advertising. You got to be running a ground game. You got to be knocking on doors. Everything costs money. And to stay alive for 50 days, I mean, it like anything else in life, if you want to drive your car for 50 days, it's going to cost you 50 days of gas. It's a lot. It's almost double of what it was in 2016. So being able to sit out there for a lot longer is going to be a problem for a candidate that isn't performing well. And so I truly believe that you're going to have a very, very small field, if any, going into Super Tuesday. I mean, you could literally have it as a one-on-one race. You could have Trump becoming the de facto nominee if he sweeps all four and does it convincingly. On the other side, we see poll after poll showing that the Democratic Party doesn't want Joe Biden. But make no mistake about it, unless something were to physically happen to him, medically or health-wise, I mean, they're stuck with this guy. And I will tell you, as much as you might cringe here and there at some of the things that the vice president says, it was a brilliant strategy to put her on the ticket with him, because everybody's rooting for Joe to do well because the alternative is Kamala Harris. And honest to God, if there isn't a segment of the Democratic Party that isn't rooting for Joe Biden to do well every day, if you look at the alternative. And, I would go back to what I said about the Republican side. Understanding the rules is important. Once Biden makes it to the convention, he's on the ballot. And the only alternative at that point legally is it comes down to the vice president, how they would, ascend the other person on the ticket. So this idea, I hate to dispel everybody, but I get these, people tell me that Michelle Obama is going to be the nominee. It's not going to happen. It's fun to say, it's fun to talk about, but I live in a world of rules and reality, and the rules of the Democratic Party are not that dissimilar to the rules of the Republican Party. And understanding those rules and how they play out is important to understanding who the nominees will be. That being said, the biggest thing that I come across these days are people on the Republican side that say Donald Trump can't win. That is probably one of the dumbest. I mean, you saw this weekend 2 polls come out, one from ABC, one from NBC. As I said, I'm not a huge fan of national polls, but it certainly dispelled the myth that he can't win when he's up 9 points over Joe Biden, 52-41. But more importantly, as I said, national polls do at least show a trend. He was up 6 the last time they did this. He's now up 9, meaning that at least you can see him trending in the right direction. The funny thing about that poll, by the way, is both ABC and the Washington Post, which probably paid a good chunk of money for it, immediately came out and denounced their own poll and said it's an outlier. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, these guys are so. Go read at the Washington Post. Let me try to see if I can pull it up here. They literally put out a disclaimer. I screenshot it because I could not. I've never seen this in politics in my life, and it says this. This is the Washington Post. Put this in the story. The post-ABC poll shows Biden trailing Trump by 10 percentage points at this early stage in the election cycle, although the sizable margin of Trump's lead in the survey is significantly at odds with other public polls that show the general election contest in a virtual dead heat. The difference between this poll and others, as well as the unusual makeup of Trump and Biden's coalition, suggested as an outlier. That's the Washington Post reporting on their own poll. ABC, when they aired it on This Week with Martha Raddatz, the fill-in host / DNC spokesperson, said, well, we can't really trust this poll. So it's amazing how they tell us to all, again, I have a million reasons why I thought the poll was crap, but I thought all their polls were horrible. And now suddenly they go out to do this. You've got the Post and ABC saying, don't trust what we're going to tell you because it says that Donald Trump's up doing well. So it's got to be bad. NBC showed the race much closer, but they similarly, it started to excuse why it could be a tight race. But as I said, I don't believe in national polls. There are 8 states in which this race is going to be run in. That's it. If you don't, South Dakota, I live here in Virginia. That's, I like to think that my vote will count. It won't. But there are 8 states: Michigan, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Nevada, Georgia, Arizona. I'm trying to think I'm missing Pennsylvania. And that's it. And when you combine them all together, it's 93 electoral votes. 93. And if you look at what Trump did in Wisconsin, 2016, he won it. He lost it in 2020. Michigan, same thing. In Michigan, in 2016, he won that state by 10,703 votes. Right? You look at Arizona, Georgia. These are tight races. 93 electoral state. So anyone who tells you that Donald Trump or frankly, anyone else, Ron DeSantis or Mike Pence or whomever, Nikki Haley, every single Republican can win against Joe Biden. And it is a media story that the Republicans can't do this. It's just not, it's not true. And the data and the polling all bear it out. And so I think that from a Republican standpoint, that we have to understand that this is going to be close. They've all been close. And so what we have to do is that if you're in a place like South Dakota, how can you help someone who lives in Pennsylvania or Georgia or in Arizona? And the same thing for those of us like, me in Virginia. I grew up in Rhode Island. We got people up there. Again, we're not going to win Rhode Island. So can maybe they help the people in New Hampshire where there are 4 electoral votes at stake? And the answer is yes. But we all need to do our part. Because what I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years is just, for as much talk as there is on the left about disinformation and misinformation, is a ridiculousness on the left. We are now, from a cultural standpoint, being told that there's nothing wrong at the border as people flood through it, that it's safe and secure. We don't have an open border. We all know that's a joke. We now believe that men can be women and women can be men, depending on what they choose to be at the moment, regardless of what science says, despite the fact that the left and the media tell us that we have to believe the science. We've changed the whole dictionary in our culture about what is right and wrong, what is acceptable. We see protests happen that are destroying property, hurting people, and we get told that they're mostly peaceful. And so what we need to do is to go out there, use our voices, send emails, talk to people. The single greatest thing that any person can do is have one-on-one contact with another voter. It is the most believable source. So despite all the ads, despite everything else, somebody saying my friend, my coworker, my friend, my cousin, my sister, my neighbor spoke to me and explained what was at stake is the most effective means of communication that we have in terms of convincing and persuading a voter. So everybody's, when you think about it, as I said, I mean, you look at Michigan, 10,000 votes, Wisconsin, 20,000 and 40,000. These are not close elections. The last election was decided by 43,000 people in 3 states. 43,000 people in 3 states. In 2016, it was 76,000 people. So this is how close this is going to come down to. And when we think about each and every one of our roles, if everybody says, fine, I'll find 10 people that I'll talk to and explain to what's at stake, we can make the difference. And that's where I think that I've tried to tell Republicans, don't get down, don't get discouraged, stay focused. The job of the left right now is to persuade us that there's no way that we can win and that everything is a foregone conclusion. The one last thing I'll leave you with before I get into some questions is, in my lifetime, I've never seen a more consequential 4 years than when Trump was in office. You think about it, lowering taxes, increasing, strengthening the border, renegotiating trade agreements. Our foreign entanglements went down. We didn't have any incursions. We got out of a war. And I think that the thing that's so interesting is that you look at Biden. This is a guy who professes to be the guy that was going to be the adult in the room, the mature voice when it came to foreign policy. Iran is saber rattling. China is being more provocative than ever. Not just provocative, but they won't talk to Joe Biden. The last time he talked to someone was the vice premier. He can't even get Xi Jinping to return his phone calls. Then you've got Russia invading Ukraine and everything that's happening there. I mean, you telling me that the world is safer now that Joe Biden is in office, the guy who knew all these people who flew like 80 million miles with Xi Jinping? It's crazy how it's devolved. You look at what's happening at home. Interest rates are through the roof. People are having a harder time buying. Who's not striking between the UAW and all of his buddies in Hollywood? Although maybe that one's solved, I guess. But it's just, and we get told that he's going to be the guy that's fixing it. We look at what's happening on the southern border. It's insane. And make no mistake about it, this is all about future voters of the Democratic Party. There's a reason. It's not hard to stop it. But we are allowing the fentanyl to flow into our country that is permeating all of our communities. We're allowing people that have criminal histories to come into our country. And yet that should be something that should be a bipartisan concern. And this administration just says, oh, it's Republicans' faults. So we have our work cut out for us, but I'm optimistic that if everyone does their job and contacts 5, 10, 15, 20 people and makes the case as to what really matters in this country and why the future is really at stake, then I have no doubt that we can win. So, Catherine, I'm glad to take questions. And
perfect. Well, I have some for you, if that's all right. And you're absolutely right. What's happening at the border is an unbelievable travesty. They are flooding across, just swarming our schools and hospitals and resources. Last month they set a new record where 234,000 came across the border. As you know, I live in Sioux Falls. That's greater than our entire population of Sioux Falls. There's
15. The number of people that have come in since this administration surpasses the population of 15 states. 15 states. And the thing that's so interesting is the new chief of the Border Patrol was on television this weekend, and everybody's focusing to some degree their attention on Eagle Pass, Texas. By the way, the Today Show, despite the influx of migration of illegal immigrants coming through Eagle Pass, historic numbers, the lead story was Taylor Swift attending a football game. I mean, I get that that's the priority right now, but the reality is that these people, the Border Patrol chief said, the Eagle Pass is the shiny nickel over here. So that all the resources are going there, and then the cartels are sneaking everybody else in through, other places. And that's the thing that's when you only have a limited number of resources, they're covering key entry points of entry. But that's just a ruse to bring in everything through another point of entry.
Yeah. In the Obama years, Secretary Clinton sat passively as an extremist, intolerant regime seized power in Egypt. The coup was a disaster for Coptic Christians, women, and ethnic minorities. And some questioned why America would let it happen. Well, now we learn Clinton's ally, Senate Foreign Relations Chair Bob Menendez, was getting paid. The evidence is flabbergasting. Like a Thomas Nast cartoon character, the New Jersey did was literally stuffing gold bars into his coat pocket. Back from a Cairo junket, Menendez powered up his desktop and Googled, what is a kilo of gold worth? I mean, this is the same guy who called President Trump a foreign agent. It's unbelievable. As Doc Holliday remarked in Tombstone, it appears their hypocrisy knows no bounds. So, Sean, are there any bounds to the DC Dems' hypocrisy?
said over the weekend that Bob Menendez, he's against relaxing the Senate dress code because you can't stuff as much cash in the gym shorts. So that's why he wants to keep wearing a suit. Look, I don't know if you heard this in the last hour. Last couple hours, he did a press conference where he said that, he this was all money he took out of savings for emergencies. And I was like, well, finally, that makes sense. I always keep $480,000 in cash lying around for an emergency. I mean, that's the first thing my wife said. Do we have batteries and $480,000 in cash? I mean, but it's worse. I mean, the gold bars have the fingerprint of the guy from Egypt on them. I do think it's hysterical. And then obviously his other big thing is that they're targeting a Latino. I can't tell you, like, this to me is like, you can't make this stuff up. So we'll see where this ends up. But I think part of the problem for the Southern District of New York is that it was so blatant and brazen, which, by the way, you would think a guy who got off on a hung jury just a few years ago would be a little bit more cautious about how he took bribes. So I will see, but it is interesting for all their talk, the silence from the left. I mean, Cory Booker, the other senator from New Jersey, has been silent on this. The White House has been silent on it. Do you really think that I would have not gotten a question about this at the White House if it had been me? And yet not one comment coming out about, do you think that he should resign? And I'm all for presumption of innocence. Like, I get it. I've seen enough people get railroaded. But at the end of the day, you tell me, and there's a degree of, it's not even the bribes, it's the stupidity. If you're going to take $480,000 in bribes and you put it in a jacket that has the emblem of the United States Senate with your name on it and stuff it into that jacket, I think that you should just have to resign because you're stupid.
Oh my gosh, I'm cracking up. Well, thank you so very, very much. Your time is so precious. We are so excited about the Sean Spicer show. Will you say just a couple words about that before you scoot?
So I appreciate you saying that. So real quick, if you can do me one quick favor, and you can even do it now while I talk, I have no problem. If you go to Apple Podcasts and just subscribe to the Sean Spicer show, if you give it a 5-star rating, it'll even make me happier. But just subscribing to that, it costs you nothing. I swear to God, I'm not going to hit you up for anything. It's just growth in podcasting is so important. You can also go watch it on YouTube for free. We're on a station called The First, which is where Bill O'Reilly, Dana Lash, Liz Wheeler, a couple others are. But the podcast numbers are what they really judge everything by. So when I left, I was given a chance to stay at Newsmax, and I made a decision about where I thought the future was going. And I think if you look at, Dan Bongino or Tucker or Glenn Beck and a bunch of these other guys who are friends and mentors of mine, the future is independent media. There are only 32% of Americans who still subscribe to cable or satellite. And that cord cutting continues every year. Some are costs, some just don't want to pay to watch CNN or whatever. And so you can get a lot of this stuff for free. You can stream it. And you're going to see more and more people go to what we're calling independent media. For me, I love doing my show on Newsmax, but I had 6 blocks. I always used to tell people when they would write in, they'd say, "Oh, we think you should do this, or we think you should do that." And I'd say the show is my name on it. It was called Spicer and Company, but I didn't own it. I mean, the owners of Newsmax own the show. They could tell me who to have on, who not to have on, what to cover, what not to cover. That's their prerogative. I was an employee of Newsmax, and that's the deal you make when you're an employee. But I had been made an offer to build my own show with a production company, and I own it. And I love the idea of having discussions with people on politics, which I think, for the next 2 years is what we're all going to be talking about. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, how old he is, how, what he's doing and where the horse race is. And, I spent 6 years at the RNC. I did my first race in 1994. So I feel like from an understanding the process and the politics standpoint, this is really what I love to do. And to have my own show where I get to lay the course for it was an opportunity that I thought was worth investing in. So again, if everyone just does me a quick favor and goes to Apple, I can literally see it in real time. It shows you who in South Dakota. I'm kidding, but it would mean a ton to my family. They need to eat tonight.
Well, perfect. Well, what I'll do is I will get that link and send it out to everybody as well. So that way it's super simple. All you have to do is click on it. I know you got to go. You have some amazing books out there. So ladies, if you're looking for late night reading, there's some terrific books. And if you're looking to read to your kids or your grandkids, Shauna also has a kids book through Brave Books called The Parents Go Bananas. So there's even
It's about fake news. Yeah, it was fun. We just did that one, came out in April, all about the dangers of fake news. And it's not like blatant. We don't actually use the word fake news, but it's about, these fictional characters that get accused of something falsely and they have to clear their name, and they all learn a lesson about spreading rumors. And it's something, as a father of two young kids, it was the first time I could actually have my kids help me with a book. The other ones, they were like, why did Donald Trump say that? So this one was a little bit more clean. And it was fun. So yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much again for joining us. We know how precious your time is. It's been so much fun having you here. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, guys. I look forward to getting back out there at some point soon.
Yes, we got to get you back out here. Absolutely. We came to Sioux Falls last time. We got to get you to Rapid City this time. Go take you to Rushmore.
That's a definite. That's on the bucket list.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk offline.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that. Our STFRW convention is in Rapid City next year, so we may get you back.
I'm in.
All right. Bye. Everybody else, stay on, please. Sean, thank you again. And everybody else, we're going to move to breakout rooms.